Hey there, and welcome to Be the CEO of Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Olga Lacroix, a mom, a former therapist, a certified coach, and a mindfulness teacher. I am here to share valuable tips and insights for all of you mothers and busy women out there. Why? My goal to help you take care of your mental well-being without sacrificing your life of accomplishments. Whether you are juggling family, career, or personal growth, this podcast is your go-to resource for becoming the best version of yourself. Let's dive in and start mastering the art of balance together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, Be the CEO of Your Life. Today, I have planned an episode that it is full on a representation, a skill that CEOs of their life have. This is going to be personal and it's going to be fun and it's going to leave you with hopefully a wonderful go-to exercise to jump anywhere, not anywhere, to jump. You can choose where in the timeline of your life you want to jump from life happening to you to life happening for you. And there is a massive difference between those two statements. When life happens to you, you tend to feel defeated and victimized by the circumstances. When life happens for you, you tend to feel grateful for the lessons lived and the experience collected. How I came up with this subject of conversation has been by paying attention to what has allowed me personally, Olga, to be resilient. What is resiliency? Our ability to overcome despite difficulties. Our ability to keep going in healthy ways despite difficult circumstances. So I was pregnant. So 5.5 years ago, while I was coaching my group of CEOs at the time. And who are the CEOs? They're a group of women who have decided to work with me for a year. And we coach every month, several times a month as a group, 3 times a week. And then they each get 1 or 2 individual coaching sessions with me a month. So some of these women get coached 5 times or see me 5 times a month. In the group, we don't always all get coached. They get coached when they want to, but for sure they will see me at least a couple of times a month in private sessions. 5.5 years ago, while coaching this group, I felt that many of the group members were stuck in a moment of life that was in the past. We all have a story to tell where we kind of say, my life was one until this happened. And then there is a before and an after. Personally, I have like 5 of those events, and maybe you do too, where we started somewhere and it was good, great. And then this thing happened and my life was never the same. It's like my life started all over again. So in that particular group 5.5 years ago, that was the case for many of them. Some were stuck in a scenario that happened 10 years ago. Some were stuck in a scenario that happened in childhood. Some were stuck in a scenario that happened a month ago and they just couldn't move past it. And I thought, okay, what is it that I've done in my personal development, in my own psychological, emotional well-being that has allowed me to leave the past be there, to sort of grab the lessons, which have been phenomenal, and then move past that. Learn, be a better human because of that. How have I essentially stopped thinking this happened to me and started thinking this happened for me? I am a living, walking example of that. And I'm about to walk you through some steps that will allow you, if you're willing, to go from victim to hero of your own story. Every good story has a villain. Every good story has a superhero. Every good story has a lesson. You know, we think about those movies that left us with like a good feeling. It's because the lesson was so beautiful. Most times for ourselves, the villain and the hero is ourselves, right? We're like the worst, what is it that we say? We're our worst enemy. In that sense, we're the villain. But other times, the villain could be an illness, could have been a financial circumstance, and a spouse, a stranger, a mentor, something, someone, whatever did to us that we were marked by, or a life event. And no matter what was the thing for you, it was who was the villain of your story. There is always the opportunity for the hero to show up. And I'm going to invite you to be the hero yourself. Okay. So if we know every good story has a villain, a hero, and a lesson, keep that in the back of your mind, because I want you to think about that life experience that was really difficult, or maybe you're going through it now. See if you can recognize the villain and see if you can recognize who the superhero was or has the potential of being. And I also want you to think about the lesson. Often, while we're going through the thick of the difficult scenario, we're like, I have no idea why this is happening to me, or what is it going to teach me? I don't see it yet. But I keep hope that one day I'm going to figure it out. So even if you're in the thick of it, try to think, what is the lesson here? What am I here to learn? Maybe you already have an indication. And if all you see is the villain and the victim, I hope that it gives you a good insight as to why you're stuck in that time of your life. Because you're still waiting for a superhero to remove that victim and make it feel all powerful. And that, my friends, is what we're doing in this episode. All right. So again, this came from me, my experiences. And since then, I found a whole bunch of books that support what I'm saying to be true. And storytelling is the way. Countless times I can tell you that when people join my coaching sessions, whether that's in group or individual, at the end of the session, after they've told me part of their story, their views, their perceptions, their experiences, they will often say they feel lighter. Oh, I feel so much lighter in my body. It's like they've removed weight from my shoulders. It's like you've removed bricks. I feel lighter. I feel better. The reason they feel like that after a coaching session is because they're not just telling the story that they've been telling themselves, the same narrative, but they're getting disrupted. How? With questions. What kind of questions? What did that feel like? How do you want that to feel? In coaching, and a good coach, a trained coach, will disrupt your narrative as you've been telling it to yourself, but will give you time and space for you to tell the story. In the telling of the story, we hear ourselves and we process and we give meaning to things differently than when we just have that narrative running through our minds quietly. When somebody is skilled interrupts the storytelling, the narrative, and asks questions that make us own our experience, we begin to see things differently. We gain new perspectives. And for that reason, it feels so much better. Now, in my early stages of healing, and I think back being very young, I would say preteen perhaps. I have always loved writing, and I've intuitively gone to writing always, not just for school related things, but I had a journal. I used to see my older sister writing her journal, and obviously, as a copycat, I started doing the same. And I found it fascinating. And I have this early memory of me writing thoughts like, oh, I can't believe that I'm upset that I'm alive because that means I have to die. And I don't want to die because I love being alive so much. I remember writing about this and just gaining new awareness of my appreciation for life. Oh, it's interesting. I love being alive so much that I kind of wish I had never been born. How weird is that? So that's my earliest recollection of creating a different narrative, of telling my story as it was happening in my brain at the time with my thoughts and my experiences. One of the reasons I love journaling is because it's helped me process those deep thoughts. Who the heck will talk to me as a preteen about these thoughts? Nobody. Nobody was available. My journal was, and I would understand myself better because I would give myself the opportunity to narrate to somebody, in this case, my journal, my thoughts and my ideas, and I would process them. When I moved to Canada as a refugee, I would find myself in the bathroom of our little shelter's bedroom, writing all my emotions, how I felt it was unjust, how I felt it was unfair, how I felt it was terrible, describing the space I was in as though I was sending letters to somebody. I was telling my story. And by the end of those mini writing sessions, I felt lighter. Those things stayed in my unconscious. Like the child in me had already experienced what writing was like. And when I was 19 and I came to this country as a refugee, that was such a beautiful outlet for me because I didn't speak the language, because just asking for help was not available. When I moved here as a refugee, yes, there was internet, but we had to walk to a public library and do it. Right? There were no cell phones with internet. You still need a computer. And so even communicating with my world, my friends, my support system was far. And this journal was my way of telling my story. To whom? To me. And by the end of these writing sessions, I'll end up sort of like giving myself a pep talk. Like the fact that I was going to be a coach was written on the stars, right? By the end of my own journaling sessions, I would be like, you've got this. This is hard for sure. But you know what? Maybe tomorrow you're going to feel better. Maybe tomorrow you're going to try to figure this out. I was problem solving. So important. I was telling my story, yes, in writing. Some of you might be like, I will never tell my story in front of anybody. Perfect. You don't have to. And I was problem solving as I was understanding from a new perspective what I was going through, what was going on inside of me. When I started going to school here to learn English, somebody suggested that I'll go see the counselor at the school because I was so sad about all the things that had happened to me and everything that I had left behind. And this woman, in her best white, non-relating capacity, this probably will never happen in 2024, but it happened to me in 2002, looked at me and saw this girl from the third world crying about the life she left behind. Well, she was in Canada with all these great opportunities. And she looked at me and she said, you have nothing to be sad about. This is a much better country. You're going to marry a Canadian man and you'll be happy that you're here. This is a great thing for you. I had just told this woman my entire story, my pain. And she assumed my life there was worse than my life here, where she was wrong. Yes, here I was safe. There I wasn't. But in terms of life quality, my life was way better back home. She dismissed it entirely. And I know that's why many of us don't tell our story, because we don't want it to be dismissed. If I'm opening up to you, I don't want this to be dismissed. Which is why we want to be selective of who we share our story and for what purpose. Okay, but 19-year-old me just went for help. That wasn't helpful. I never went back. I went back to my journal, far more helpful. Move me back forward to 5.5 years ago when I'm pregnant and I'm coaching this group of incredibly, I don't know, sophisticated, executive, well-functioning women who are finding themselves stuck in a space of that lifetime of their life's timeline. There is a part, something that happens where they're stuck and they can't move past it. Are almost obsessing over that. Yes, but my husband did this once and I just can't get past it. My mentor told me this once and I can't get past it. My parents used to tell me this and I can't get past it. This happened to me and I can't get past it. I had to deeply think about, what do I know to be true about my own experience of resiliency? How come I am sane today when I had every reason to be insane? How come not only am I sane, I'm not resentful? Like, I carry no hard feelings for anything that's ever happened to me. And it hit me is because I don't think anything happened to me. It happened for me. So, my friends, what I realized that I've done, and I'm inviting you to do, is to learn to tell your story, not from the perspective of the victim whose life happened to them, whose circumstances made them do, made them be, made them feel. But that you hear that story once more, you tell it like that to yourself once more, and you begin to change the story as the hero has arrived. And you are that hero. You are the hero of your own life story. Stop waiting for somebody to come and give you the right answers. If you are unhappy today with your life circumstances, call upon your superhero, aka yourself, and ask him to change your direction. So we must first retell our narrative, change our narrative. So I'm going to ask you to write down that event that you feel marked you. Your life was one before, your life became one after. Write it down. I want you to be aware of how you tell that story in your head. Because if you've never told it to anybody, you probably don't even know how you tell it. How do you tell that story? Are you blaming yourself? Are you blaming others? Are you telling the story from the lenses of happened to me, and as a result, I am like this? And have no judgment, but just be aware. And then do what I did. I grabbed that timeline of my life and I marked it. Oh, when I was 10, I almost died. Oh, when I was 15, a car hit me. Oof, that same year, I was in a plane that was on an emergency, landed in emergency. I thought I was going to die. A second time, Jesus. At the young age of 15, I had almost been dead 3 times. A third time, but then I had to leave my country, my pets, my life as I knew it, my culture, my language, my right to live in my homeland. Ooh, I had to be a refugee. I knew nobody. I spoke no language. I didn't speak the language. I had to start all over again. Yes, I was young, but still, to start all over again. Marry the wrong person. Stayed married for 1 year, thankfully. Move me forward. Try to have a baby. Instead, I had losses. Oof, that was basically what I dedicated my 30s to, being a mom that thankfully ended up in Mateo. Then Mateo is born. New land on the sand. So there's I in my lifetime have so many of these events. I wrote them all down for the sake of understanding how I was viewing each of these events. And then I wrote down the mentors. And who are the mentors? The mentors were the lessons. I told you every good story has to have a lesson. So Okay, when I almost died, what is it that I learned from that? What was the lesson? Oh my God, I would say that the mentor that showed up was resiliency. My thoughts are powerful. I've got control over my thoughts. Great. Thoughts are powerful. I control my mindset. Miracles happen. Magic does exist. Perhaps my biggest lesson of that timeline was that I'm strong. I'm very strong. I beat dead. Who else does that? That's amazing. I'm stubborn, and my stubbornness is my superpower. I was like, Dad, I win this one. Thank you. Lessons learned. It changed the way I told that story. That story was told before. My mom didn't believe me I was in pain because she had taken me to three doctors. Those three doctors all made mistakes in diagnosing me. I was in so much pain. I almost died. As a result, I have a massive, ugly scar on my abdomen. And I had to be a teenager with a massive, ugly scar on my abdomen. And I had to go out on dates. And I had to be like, by the way, full disclosure, I have an ugly scar on my belly. Right? It could have, I could have told that same story in so many ways where life happened to me. In paying attention to the lessons, I was able to change the narrative. I was able to say, like, God, I'm so lucky I got a second chance to being alive. Yes, and it left me with a scar where they saved my life from. Amazing. And by the way, the day my belly was massive big with a child inside of me, that was so magical to see both of those things. Two miracles. Okay. Then you're gonna move from each time. If you're like me, you have many, but most people get to have one of those moments. How are you seeing it? What were the lessons you learned? And come and be the superhero. Change the narrative. If you're still in that moment, like my clients where they were stuck and they had so much resistance to rewriting the narrative, but he did do this to me and it didn't have to be that way. And he was unfaithful and whatever. He did it to me. Huh. Little by little, I started seeing that story change. You know what? I guess I was never open up to being loved. I guess like they were owning. I guess I was not showing up as the wife that I wanted to be myself. I guess I spent a lot of time at work. I guess like they started seeing the story from a different perspective. And in doing so, they became their superheroes and they released themselves from what didn't belong to them. And they owned with strength what it did belong to them so that they could learn from the next time. And a lot of them released resent and regret and blame and guilt. And they gained confidence and they gained perspective and a sense of gratitude. This is therapeutic. This is healing from the best place. You're the healer. We heal by listening to our stories. We heal by understanding how the telling of the story led us into the thoughts we're having about what happened to us. And as the superhero, we change it to it happened for us. It is hard to go back into those life events that were traumatic in nature or that were painful and we're in some ways we're still hurting and look at it. Well, my clients would say, I can't look at it positively. I'm not asking you to look at it positively. You're not going to change the facts. The facts remain the same. Doctors did make a mistake. I did almost die. I do have a scar. It is ugly. It does give me a complex. Those are facts. But how do I wish to remember this? How do I wish that impact to be carried on in my future days? How do I want that painful experience to be transformed into, to propel me into my best interest? How do I let that be part of my growth, not what makes me stagnant or traumatized for life? Do you have the person who talks to you about something that happened to them and you feel that it just happened and then they shock you by telling you it happened 11 years ago? And you're like, how? How are you still so sensitive about this? How have you not processed? Well, because they've been telling the same narrative over and over and over to themselves where this happened to them. They're the victim, and there's only a villain and a victim, and there's no hero. The hero of your story, being yourself, you're going to save yourself from the way you're telling the story. The hero wins the battle with the villain. When I'm able to look at that life event and say, miracles do happen. That's the hero looking at the villain and saying, like, I know you tried to take this one from us, but it just didn't happen. Because miracles do happen. It is both a therapeutic, a coaching process that allows you to process your life differently, honoring what did happen to you. We don't forget about it. We just not talk about it. It equips you to tell your story to others if ever you feel like it, to own your emotions, to go back from a safe place, to feel how that felt, but from the perspective of what you learned, the gift behind that experience. And I tell you this, it tests me. Please go out and try it and test my theory. But this I promise you. No matter what the circumstance that you lived through, it left you with a gift. And it is up to you to see it and accept it or to completely dismiss it. And in my experience, when we dismiss the lesson, life is beautiful. It's going to give it to you again until you get it. Until you say, I understand. I am going to integrate this. So go out and tell your story, whether that's to a coach, to your journal, to a therapist, to a friend, to your spouse. Hear yourself. Does it sound like you're telling this story happened to you? And if you begin to change that for you, what changes? How do you want to remember this into your life, into your future? How do you want your kids to think about it if you ever tell them? I know for a fact I want my son to think I am a badass superhero. I want him to feel the depth of my love for life. I want him to know that no matter what, I'll be okay because I have been. I want him to understand that forgiveness is far greater than any resentment or wish or will for justice. I personally want to be the pioneer of my family and the generations to come of people who know they can be the heroes of their own life. And my contribution is by doing it myself, by shifting the way I tell the story, by helping them perceive, I think of my child, his own story from the lenses of this happened for you, my son, not to you. So, my beautiful people, I hope this inspires you on this fun Monday. And if you're not listening on a Monday, get on with the program. I release these episodes every Monday. I have healed by telling my story. Not out on Facebook to everybody, although I've done that too. Not out to any stranger. Not in a place that makes me unsafe. In the right settings so that I could really hear myself or read my words, read my story, and have the perspective be grown and expanded by interactions with my own narrative. And that is what I want for you. That, my friends, is the beginning of truly owning the title of CEO of your life. You get to say how life gets to impact you. That is pure power. I love you. Thank you for sharing this space with me, for listening. Please share this episode with whomever you think could really use these words. If this is something that you feel you want help with, reach out to me. I would love to hear your story. I would love to interrupt the narrative that's not serving you. me or any of the coaches in my team, don't wait any longer. Change that narrative. Bye-bye. See you guys next week.